Oblivion is a post-apocalyptic blockbuster starring Tom Cruise that takes inspiration from a variety of different science fiction stories. It's filled with robots, rebels, slick technology, and desolate vistas peppered with reminders of the old world. Today we'll discuss what elements of Oblivion work and if the film manages to find its own identity. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter and I'm joined as always by Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
Nailed it. Finally, it took 4 takes to finally do the intro of this episode. This is a science fiction movie podcast. We talk about a sci-fi movie every week. And coming up on this week's show, it is the most recent vote winner every month of patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Our $5 and up patrons get to vote between 4 movies. I think this was another alphabet vote. It was like the next 4 letters, so I don't know what we started on, but obviously the letter O was one of them, and that is what has led to Oblivion. Not the Elder Scrolls game, but Oblivion starring Tom Cruise and Morgan Freeman and Olga Kurylenko, the attractive one. Okay, so
and the woman from Possessor.
Oh, you're right.
The red-headed woman is the woman in Possessor, which we reviewed on the channel.
You're right. Isn't she also Mandy from the Nicolas Cage film Mandy?
I haven't seen that film. She's in Crocodile, the short from Black Mirror, and those are the only other things I know her in. So I'm out. I'm out of stuff.
Oh yeah, that wasn't a good episode of Black Mirror, but yeah, you're right. She was in that episode.
I like that one.
It was just like a poor imitation of Shut Up and Dance from the previous season, I thought, but. We're not here to talk about Black Mirror. We're here to talk about Oblivion. I'm checking something. Yeah, she is Mandy. That was right. Okay, good. I'm be resty as it now. So, yes, we're here to talk about Oblivion. We will start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers, as we always do. Oblivion is set in the 2070s. It's in the future. And it is after a war has taken place that has decimated the planet. It's destroyed the moon. The moon's kind of like sort of half there, but it's all in rubble. I'm not so sure of the space physics and if like all the debris that is if something's just shot through it. I don't know if that would stay that way permanently. I'm not convinced, but I'll.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it'll probably just form a ring in the future.
Okay.
After like, I don't know, a million years or something, Earth will just have a ring instead of a moon.
I just, a ring around the Earth, you mean? Yeah, okay. Because I was under the impression that once something was moving in space, nothing would stop it. So I figured that if something is shot through it, then all the smaller bits would all just go wee and never stop.
Yeah, if it's enough to break the orbit, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah, I suppose it's technically still in orbit. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, so the moon's decimated. That wreaked havoc, and it was apparently aliens called the what did they call them again?
Scree?
No, it wasn't the Scree. It was Scavs, because it was short for scavenger. Yeah, scavenger.
Oh, okay, Scavs.
Yeah. So yeah, these aliens called the Scavengers came down afterwards and sort of picked up the remains of humanity, which obviously was decimated by tidal waves and earthquakes and everything else that would happen if the moon suddenly just wasn't there. We're not referencing Moonfall, okay? We're not doing it. I have put in a ban on Moonfall referencing at this juncture.
Moonfall's such a good movie.
How can you say that with a straight face?
Because I had a blast watching it.
No.
That's how movies work.
Not all movies. Moonfall did not work that way.
Moonfall's great.
Moonfall had a series of groans and eye rolls and the occasional heh. That was my experience with Moonfall. So the moon's decimated, the planet is now barren, and the population of Earth have moved to Titan, the moon on Saturn. Well, not on Saturn, you know what I mean, orbiting Saturn. And we basically have Tom Cruise and Andrea Riseborough, who plays Victoria, and Tom Cruise plays a character called Jack, because he has to do that like once every 3 years. He has to play a character named Jack, because then he's like just all his contracts. He's not been called Jack in a while. He has to be Jack again. So they're there in this fancy kind of like high up little station, and it's their job to maintain all the drones that are going around, because part of the process of all the rest of the population moving to Titan is that there's these big machines that are taking water out of the ocean and converting it to energy somehow. And Tom Cruise is basically just like he's the mechanic who just runs around and fixes them and potentially deals with any problems that crop up. Because there's still scavs on Earth that occasionally try and sabotage their devices. So that's the setup of the movie. And it's just 2 days till retirement, or more specifically 2 weeks. Their shift's ending in 2 weeks, where they're going to like leave Earth and go and join Titan, and presumably be replaced by another pair. And that is the setup. There's actually a lot more to it that is revealed as the movie goes on, but that is the basic setup of Oblivion. I think I got that more or less right. So I will ask the question, Tara, what did you think of Oblivion?
Well, I think it's a pretty cool movie. I think it's pretty fun. I didn't get to see this one in theaters. I missed it and ended up getting it on like a Redbox or rental or something. And I heard it wasn't good. And I think that's why I skipped it, because the reviews weren't very good for it. But I don't know why people don't like the movie. I think it's actually quite smart and quite fun and pretty cool. It's a cool movie.
I did see it in theaters. I saw this in 2013 when it came out. I haven't seen it since, until today when I watched it for the show. And I was relatively fond of it at the time. I did have critiques, which I still have now, and I'm going to get into those in a minute. But like I kind of enjoyed it for what it was. I definitely don't like it as much this time round. I think the issues I had with it the first time were more problematic this time. But I will say I really like the music. M83 did the score, and I like their music quite a bit. So there's a lot of good synth and really sort of atmospheric sort of tracks in the soundtrack. That stuff's really good. And there's a lot of good like visuals or aesthetics and things in this movie, that sort of thing. Where it kind of falls down a little bit is, to an extent, some of the characters that aren't Tom Cruise's character feel a little undercooked. And I would also say that this is very much a derivative film that is assembled of like 10 other movies all mashed together.
There's a lot of movies, yeah, that I recognized.
Yeah, there's a lot of them in this, and some of them, and I think what's really funny is that early on, and I won't say specifically until we get to spoilers, but early on I was getting really serious Moon vibes from one element of the first 20 minutes or so of the movie. And what's so funny is that it then did something else from Moon like much later that made, and as it was sort of starting to happen, I went, no, you can't be, you've already like taken from Moon, you can't be doing something else. And it really like it makes sense in the context of what they set up and what they're revealing by that point in the movie. Like I understand why they're doing it, but there's there's a lot of stuff taken from 2001 in this. Hal's eye, Hal 9000's eye, you're going to see a lot of that in this movie.
Oh yeah, that's pretty common though.
Yeah,
I mean, but red is an evil color in technology.
You've got the eye on drones, so you've got like a robotic eye. You've also got a very monolithic thing in the sky, right? It's not the same shape as the monolith, but it's a very monolithic type thing. You have elements of Legati, or if you want to say 12 Monkeys.
I was gonna say that. I was like, now that we've watched it, boy, there's a lot of Legati in this film. A lot of it, actually.
Yeah. That was really, because I don't think I'd seen that.
I think more than like 12 Monkeys even.
Yeah, I don't think I'd seen Legati when I first saw this. So this was like, so the first time I saw this, I was like, oh, there's a lot of 2001, there's a lot of Moon, a little bit of Independence Day, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then a bit of Wall-E even. And the general premise is very Wall-E in some ways.
Bit of Moonfall.
Well, that didn't come out till later. I was just going with the things that came out before it, but yeah, sure. But yeah, watching it this time, like I was like the very first scene, the very first thing you see, I'm like, wait, this is Legit. They're doing Legit. Which stands for the pier, or means the pier in French, I believe, or something similar to that. So it's a short film that then the film 12 Monkeys was based on, just in case, because I'm not going to assume they've all seen our episode on 12 Monkeys where we talked about it in depth, but there's a lot of that. So we'll talk about all the things we're going to like compare to these other movies later. I actually, for a laugh, I googled, because I was having these thoughts as I was watching the movie, and I thought, oh, I wonder if there's other ones I'm missing. And I went, movies that Oblivion rips off. I put that into Google, and sure enough, there was like a list of 12. And I didn't necessarily agree with all of them. I thought some of them were a bit of a stretch, but it was like funny to me that you could almost do a top 10 movies that you can recognize in Oblivion and rank them. That's kind of funny to me. But yeah. So, and then the other sort of critique I would have is I think the first half, first half, give or take, I would say that it raised this really weird line where it's not playing into what's obviously going to happen enough, where it feels like something like, say, I can't even say compare it to some without spoiling it, but it doesn't play it obvious enough that it feels like you're waiting for something to happen in a way that you're all in on it, right? But it also makes it fairly obvious that something's going to happen, that it's kind of frustrating just how long it takes to get to the point where someone or the characters realize something. And it was very frustrating. It was frustrating in the first watch, but it was very frustrating on the second watch for me. So again, I kind of told all of that because there's a lot of reveals and twists in this movie.
I don't know
actually,
if you can hold that against the film though. You're frustrated because you already know what's going to happen because you've seen it already.
No, it was frustrating the first time as well. It's painfully obvious in the first viewing as well.
Okay.
Like that's the point I was trying to make, is it was worse the second time, but the first time it was still there. Like it was still. Again, I can't talk about it because I can't spoil it. Because it's a reveal. It's a I won't say a twist, but
I know that you've described this movie before as like the Apple space movie because everything looks like Apple, but boy, everything to me looks like Portal 2. I mean, I've never played Portal 1, so I don't know. But like everything in this movie like looks like Portal 2.
Do you know what's so funny is that I've got a phrase to describe a plot device in this movie, and it comes from Portal.
Yeah.
There's a phrase that I'm going to use when we get to spoilers to describe like the first.
Is it the cake is a lie?
Why would you say it? Why would you say it?
Because it's the obvious thing that comes from it.
Why would you say? I just said I wasn't going to say it because it would spoil it.
It doesn't spoil anything.
Yes, it does. The cake is a lie. You know.
There's no cake in this movie.
Well, it's not literal cake. You know, like obviously it means that things aren't what they seem, and that you're going home in 2 weeks. That's the cake.
Yeah.
You're gonna get to go and join the population in 2 weeks. That's the cake. Like,
well, sure. I mean, is saying that Morgan Freeman's in the movie a spoiler?
Well, no, because his name's on the poster, but like it's not like you know how he's going to show up. Like you expect him to show up eventually.
All right. Do what you want.
Forgive me for trying to be spoiler free, like proper spoiler free, and not reveal key plot twists. Yes, it is so unbelievably obvious that the cake is a lie from the very first second that even Tom Cruise and he's like, I don't think they're married technically, I think they're just like partners who live together and seemingly have sex. Like the first conversation they have with each other or with Sally on the computer is very clear that the cake is a lie. Which is the first thing that really made me think of Moon, and I think Moon does it way better. Moon, like, it doesn't overplay its hand. It feels kind of natural the way Sam Rockwell is thinking he's going home soon, and he's kind of like on a video call to like Matt Berry, and it's kind of, and they're kind of edging him along a little bit, but it doesn't feel like super like in your face. Here it does though, like it's very clear that something's not quite right, but it doesn't go so far enough. Like I think the thing I'd compare it to, where the extreme end where you make it obvious that everything is a lie, would be the Truman Show, where from the first second that this is all not real.
Well, that's the setup.
Yes, I mean it's in the setup, but you play it differently with the way he interacts with that world and the characters, because we're in on it. So the fun of it is him spotting the signs that we understand. Whereas this movie still kind of plays it like you're going through it, like, and like there's going to be a twist when it's eventually comes up that things aren't quite what they seem. And believe, don't worry, there's still plenty in the movie that we've not mentioned. Like that's just the first domino that falls. There's so much to the backstory. There's so much about what's actually going on. There's so much of everything that there's so much actually that there's a lot of exposition. In fact, the first critique I'd have of this movie is that sorry, Tara. is there something you would like to interject at this moment in time?
No, go on.
I was just going to say, like, this movie is really Hollywood, and one of the really Hollywood things about it is that they have to have Tom Cruise over-explain the setup at the start, when honestly it would be far more interesting to get it in the snippets of dialogue that come throughout the first. Maybe that would make the first third a lot more interesting if we were like gradually learning about what's here. There's a moment where he says to someone, "Oh, like the rest of the population moved to Titan," and all I could think was, if this is the first time I'd heard that'd have been quite an interesting like thing to just hear. But no, we get like 2 minutes of him at the start, like really excruciatingly explaining in detail what the backstory is.
Yeah, the opening feels like it's sort of an added note, like this movie's too confusing. Please make sure you add in a voiceover at the beginning, because we do kind of get all the information we need from the dialogue and from the situations that they're in. So I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that that was a producer note.
Yeah.
But at least we get, right away the explanation for why the world is according to our main character that we're following. And we could see that, he kind of skirts the rules. He pushes things a little bit further than he should. And he has this like other secret life that he is clinging to, that he still misses the world in some way that it used to be.
Well, not misses, because he was never alive for the world. He wasn't born until after the world fell.
I guess curiosity is more.
He's more like
the best word.
He's basically more of a history nerd, if anything. But yeah, he collects like relics of the past and stuff. He has a little secret stash of things.
Yeah, kind of like Wally.
That he's not supposed to have. Yeah, kind of like Wally. Yeah.
He has this drive like a bird does to build a nest. Like he just has this drive to build his own little place on the planet and collect things.
So, yeah, I honestly, I would go as far as to say this movie doesn't have a single original bone in its entire body. Like,
oh, come on. That's so cruel. Just because there's inspiration from other films doesn't mean it's not original.
It's not just inspiration.
You sound like just a regular person on YouTube who wants to hate everything.
But even I still kind of enjoy the movie. I don't like it as much as the first time, but even when I enjoyed it in 2013, I would have still said that. This movie has nothing original.
You're being a bit
in it.
harsh, I think.
Oh, come on. It is nothing but a concoction of other movies assembled together.
There's lots of things in here that are original. All right. It's just that there's a lot of inspiration from other science fiction properties, and that's okay. I mean, does Quentin Tarantino not make anything original? Everything comes from something in his films.
Like, I'm not saying that it makes it bad. I'm saying that it's just a fact. This movie is an amalgamation of several other movies. Like if you have watched some sci-fi movies, if you've played some sci-fi video games, if you've read some sci-fi comics, you've probably encountered every idea that's in this movie before. Yeah,
it's just taking ideas and like inspiration and making something new out of it. And sure, maybe it reminds you of a lot of other things, but it doesn't make it not like a good story or not something that has something to say.
Okay, to use the comparison you just made though, right? Tarantino obviously has a lot of inspiration from a lot of things from the past, right? And admittedly, he has the slight advantage that he pulls from a lot of obscure sources that most people won't recognize. But let's ignore that, right? I think the difference with Tarantino when he's making his movies are like these, love letters to the cinema that he loved and like was obsessed with his whole life, is that he always makes it Tarantino, right? When you watch a Tarantino movie, he takes all these ingredients and then he turns it into a Tarantino movie. Can you tell me, watching this movie, that it felt like it had an identity where you're like, that's a Joseph Kosinski movie?
I mean, the bike thing reminded me of the Tron cycle, which he did make Tron 2, Tron Legacy. There's a little bit of Tron in this also.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I could
no.
definitely tell that it's the same director. And you haven't seen Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, which
No,
is
I've
one of
not.
the best movies of this year. But there's a lot of that in here too. Like I could see that they're all the same director.
Okay, but do you? I mean, come on here. Like people go to see a Tarantino movie because Tarantino directed it. Do you really?
Tarantino has a very strong voice. And
Yes.
a lot of times he's narrating his movies even. So, but yeah, it's. I still think that this movie has, something to say. We could talk about it in the spoiler section, and it's got a really unique style and a cool soundtrack or cool score. Yeah, I still think it has like its own fingerprint.
I don't think it's a unique style. I like the music. I think the style still feels pretty. I mean, like I said, I compare it to Apple. You compare it to Portal, but it feels like a mashup of a couple of different things. Anyway, let's talk about the cast and stuff and like the other things we talk about in spoiler free. So, Tom Cruise plays Tom Cruise, pretty much.
Best of the best of the best.
He's he's the star, right? He anchors the movie. I think if you have anyone not anyone else, I'm sure you can get another star that would fit just as well. I don't think the role specifically needs Tom Cruise, but I think you just need someone who's big enough and has big enough presence to anchor the role, which obviously he fits that bill. So, you could throw in, I don't know, take your pick.
I do actually think that he is not essential for this film.
No.
And I'd say that as a Tom Cruise super fan. Of his work.
Yeah, not his personal side.
Not so much, but I do love his films because I know he gives it his all. But, there are a couple of times where I'll watch a Tom Cruise film and I'm like, it didn't really need to be him. Like, it makes sense why, why he is this character when you find out like other things, but still, I don't know, like any strong actor could have done this role.
Yeah, if anything, it kind of maybe even adds to that Hollywood sheen feeling that it has that I think detracts from it. Like, I almost wish it was a bit grittier, and I think Tom Cruise inherently just makes you feel a bit like, oh, this
movie
is
star.
it's a movie star, so it's a safe. Like, I think if you put someone just a slight more of an edge in the role, it may be more interesting.
I actually have a difficult time now with Morgan Freeman because of his, problematic personal life also.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's the other thing. Morgan Freeman, like, maybe not in that sense, but like typically or traditionally, Morgan Freeman's a very soothing presence in a movie, right? He's just got that voice. So it kind of feels like this is like a vehicle for whoever's going to star in it. So it feels like a Hollywood movie as opposed to, like, I guess my preferred version of this type of movie, I suppose it is Moon. I guess what I'm saying is it's just the lower budget, like indie, like darling, I suppose, is the version of this movie that I am more attracted to. Obviously,
I think I would have liked it more if it was Sam Rockwell instead of Tom Cruise, and maybe like Forrest Whitaker instead of Morgan Freeman or something.
That's a good, yeah, because Forrest Whitaker has a bit more of an edge to him. He's a bit more off killer. Because as soon as you hear Morgan Freeman's voice, like, you have just this.
It's
like,
just Red reading to you.
Yeah. It's like, okay, there's just something comforting now. So regardless of whether or not you want me to think he might be a bad guy, I'm not willing to buy it quite yet. Movie. Or just whoever, someone like Tom Hardy. Like Tom Hardy could probably like give like an edgy performance to this. Like, to get Venom out your head. I know. I can see it in your head. You're thinking Venom, and you're thinking, no, that's terrible. But no. Think Tom Hardy and like other things.
Star Trek Nemesis.
No, not that. It's a terrible one to pick.
What?
No, like obviously not playing the same type of character, but I'm thinking like the level that he brought to Bronson. But not that character, because that's like a crazy character.
I haven't seen it, but
okay.
I understand the role.
Yeah. Tom Hardy, or even his like sort of spiritual younger brother, Logan Marshall Green. I think he could do a good intense. He was in The Invitation. He was in
Was he in the Logan? No.
Logan? I don't think so.
Okay.
If he was, I don't remember where he was.
But like the one guy who's like trying to find X-23 or something, or he's in charge of the group.
No, that's not him. No.
Okay, I like that guy for the like 3 seconds he was on screen.
But I guess what I'm just saying is, like Tom Cruise is like too safe Hollywood, so it kind of like adds to the.
It is a little bit like getting Scarlett Johansson to star in whatever that Ghost in the Machine movie or something.
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell.
Well, it's not as problematic because this isn't,
No, but immediately you're like, oh, so this is just a Hollywood film.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I think that kind of adds to like the overall feeling that I kind of get from it, which is that it does very much feel like a Hollywood produced, like, oh well, what's all these popular things from recent years? Let's, get a committee in a room with a writer and come up with what it is and go off and do it, as opposed to like feeling like it's some one person had like an idea and they wanted to like say something with that idea, and don't get me wrong though, I think almost to its benefit, because it's like it feels that way for a while, but then it keeps adding more things on, which could be a problem. But I think in this case I start to enjoy it more in the second half, because I'm like, okay, they're just throwing everything into this, okay, I'll just enjoy it for the borderline schlock that it kind of is at this point. Because it's not a serious emotional movie, even though it's trying to like take from Leisure T, which obviously is a very emotional, like heart-wrenching kind of romantic center to that story.
Mm-hmm.
This film's attempts of giving us that feeling are lukewarm at best.
I would say the part of the film I like the least is the love story.
I think that's fair.
And maybe it's just like it's not that I think that she's too young for Tom Cruise, because like whatever, Tom Cruise can get it, but like
I mean, she definitely is. Like, I remember thinking this when I saw it in 2013, like she's like half his age, I'm pretty sure.
Like, yeah, it's probably time to. That's why I like Jennifer Connelly in Maverick. I'm like, oh, finally age appropriate for Tom Cruise. Even though I'm pretty sure he's got like 10 years on her at least. But in any case, like it's still, I don't know, like maybe if they had somebody who was closer in age to him, that I would like buy it more. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like when I watched The Mummy also, it had the same feeling where it's like, maybe he's a little bit too old for this role. But I love his Daredevil stuff, so why can't he be like this kind of action movie also? I can't quite separate it. And like right after this movie was Edge of Tomorrow, which is a movie I love and I thought was fantastic. And
but again, it's Emily Blunt and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Full Metal Bitch.
And it gets worse with each, passing year. So The Mummy was much worse than this in that regard, because this is now 4 or 5 years later, and still, because the joke for a long time was Tom Cruise keeps getting older, but his love interest keeps staying the same age.
Yeah, he's like the character from Dazed and Confused.
So, yeah, but I mean, obviously he gives it his all. He doesn't like phone it in. Like, he's Tom Cruise. He doesn't do that typically. I can't think of a Tom Cruise performance where he doesn't feel like he's there for it. So
I guess he's just always going to feel like a superhero on screen.
I think it makes
Maybe that's why I like Edge of Tomorrow so much, because he has to earn it, throughout the film.
Well, I think that's what impressed me about his performance in Edge of Tomorrow, is that he does convincingly come off as this cowardly piece of shit at the start, and he has to sort of grow out of it. But his action movie aura like works in the Mission Impossible movies, like it just
totally,
because that's meant to feel like a movie. It feels like you're watching.
It's very real.
Yeah. Well, it's not though, right? I know there's stunts and stuff, but it's it's like.
Well, that's really what I mean. Like it when you're watching it, you're on the edge of your seat, because what he's putting into the film is his life.
Yeah, there's a lot of stunts and stuff like that, but it's also far more fake feeling in terms of like the story itself. It's
it's
ridiculous.
very fantastical.
Yeah. And that's okay, because that's the type of movie it is, and it's fine. And obviously science fiction inherently has got a lot of things in it that are, you know, made up and whatever, but, you know, you use it to say something, you use it as an allegory, or you use it because it's... Whereas I watched this movie and I kind of get the feeling like the director's reason for doing a lot of things is because, oh, this just looks cool. And that's not necessarily an invalid reason to do things. Like, you know, seeing Tom Cruise riding his bike past, you know, like a bridge that's half in sand because, you know, the oceans have mostly dried up. You know, there's only like what, a clump of it
there's some
left.
great, like, I'm sure some great Roland Emmerich porn in this of apocalyptic cities, post-apocalypse.
I don't know. Is Roland Emmerich the type of guy who, like, he needs to see it be destroyed? It's just not enough to see the aftermath. He needs to see he needs to see it actually happen.
Maybe.
Yeah. So, the ladies, like, I think they both kind of get the shaft here in terms of like being given material to work with. I think Andrea Riseborough, who's like the partner who's living with them, I think she suffers because she's meant to be the one who doesn't question like the orders. She's the one who doesn't have the wild side, and you know, I never really quite buy their chemistry, and I suppose maybe that's kind of the point because it's supposed to feel like it's not supposed, you know, they're not really meant for each other.
She kind of feels like the Truman Show Laura Linney character, where you're just like, this isn't right. This isn't, like, they're playing the part, but they're not really there. I don't know.
I almost wonder if it would be more effective if, like, they did do a good job and like they had chemistry. And when I say they do a good job, I just mean the writing and direction of it. But like, what if you actually made me really care about her?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the changes I would make in the film, but I don't really want to talk about more until we get the spoilers.
Yeah. And then Olga's character, who's just a spoiler basically, out of her existence, so we can't really say who she is, but like, her character is, again, she's kind of like a plot mechanic. She represents something in the plot. She is like, you know, she's not really got an arc her own. She's there to be fought for. She's there to be wanted by the villain. She's there to be, you know, this,
she
this,
sure
and this.
looks pretty doing it though.
She's very pretty the entire time. But that's kind of it.
She got a great stash of dry shampoo somewhere.
And I noticed, especially in this viewing, she doesn't have a lot of dialogue. And I know that her accent is, I don't know where in Europe she's from, but you know she's doing an American accent. I wonder if that was like an intentional. We'll just she can keep as quiet as much as possible, and just kind of, you know, she'll just sort of look kind of and stare and maybe have a tear come down just in the right moments, and just, you know, say a couple of words, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, she does a single tear though. That's it's good. Do they CGI those in yet, or do you still have to be an actor who can do it?
They do it in some things, and I have heard complaints of the CG tears been put in, but
I haven't noticed that yet.
It must be relatively convincing when it happens, because I've not really noticed it too much either, but I imagine proper actors still cry themselves.
Yeah, like Bryce Dallas Howard, she can do it.
Sure. Why her though? Why specifically her?
Oh, there's like a viral video of her doing it on Conan. He's like talking about a story about Home Depot, and she starts to cry just from listening to the story. But that's like the whole deal, is that she just needs somebody to talk or to tell a story, and then she can get herself to cry. It's pretty amazing. She even gets a single teardrop.
Oh, well, she's an actor, so
yeah.
So she's in the right profession with that skill.
Maybe that was a tip that her dad gave her. Like, if you can do this one thing, you will get any job you want.
Is that because he couldn't do it when he was an actor? So he's like, I'm going to train my daughter from the age of 2 to cry on command.
Child actors ever. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I mean, cinematography, obviously it has the big sweeping shots with all the landmarks and stuff in it, you know, because it's in the New York kind of area, because you see the tip of the Empire State Building sticking out of sand. I noted that they didn't do a Statue of Liberty, and I think that's just because everyone, like, they knew everyone would be like, Planet of the Apes, Planet of the Apes.
Maybe too much.
Yeah. So, yeah, you get a lot of those sweeping shots. I wouldn't say the visual style of the movie, though, is, it's not bad. Like it's not a poorly directed movie in a visual and editing sense, but I wouldn't say it's exceptional either. I never really felt much in the way of like when the action sequences play out later on, I never really felt any particular panache or like style that was making it feel a bit more inventive. It was competent. It was perfectly competent. It wasn't like choppy or like hard to follow or anything. And that's a complaint I have with a lot of movies these days, where I'm just like, oh, I can't even follow this action scene because it's just too messy and there's too much going on. And so I could always follow what was going on. So credit where credit is due. But I also never kind of went above for me to go, oh, that was a really cool standout action sequence because it made me feel like the adrenaline and the way it moved around the scene or whatever. And that's something, to compare it to other Tom Cruise stuff. Like the better Mission Impossible movies. But I think of Ghost Protocol, and I think of him just on the side of that building, or I think of some of the other sequences in that movie. They're just so well directed that I'm like so into the action. Yeah.
Yeah, most of the action in this film sort of comes from the same type of thing over and over again. And it does feel like, well, this is only here to put another barrier between our hero and his goal, rather than to have something really well shot and to wow the audience. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, otherwise though, I said I really like the music, and I still do. The score's fantastic. One of my favorite tracks plays at a moment I don't think it fits very well. There's a moment where Tom Cruise and Andrea Riseborough go into like the pool, which is a really fancy pool. It's like a giant like dish you'd put in the oven, but it's like just a big pool that's like see-through, and it like dangles down from this like floating house that they're in. Yeah. But it's when they jump in the pool and they're having this kind of romantic, and maybe it's because I don't really buy the romance all that much, but like the track that plays during that's great, and I'm like, oh man, I like whenever I listen to that music, like I always like imagine something way better than this this scene of them in the pool, just kind of you
get some butt though.
Sure, yeah, you get some butt.
Good for her.
Yeah, did Tom Cruise show his butt? I don't remember.
No, we get abs.
Yeah, abs. Okay.
Abs and pecs.
Abs and pecs. Well, it's a very PG-13 movie.
Yeah.
Very PG-13.
Yeah, just some butts.
But I mean, even just in like tone and like stuff, it feels very PG-13. It doesn't feel like it's going for anything too edgy with what it's doing.
Yeah, it's not very horrific or very gory or anything like that. It's just not a lot of foul language, not a lot of talking, except from Tom Cruise.
Yeah, well, there's one F-bomb, and it does have a pretty decent F-bomb. If you only have the one F-bomb in the PG-13, it does choose its moment fairly well.
You're right.
I'll give it that. So that's cool. Unlike say Kong Skull Island, which the F-bomb just comes out of like this weird like random exchange.
Yeah, that movie's not very good.
It was kind of like when they dropped the first F-bomb in Star Trek Discovery. You're like, wait, did they just drop an F-bomb? Why?
Yeah.
That? Like, surely there's a better, more...
Or when Data swears in Star Trek Generations.
Yeah, surely there's a better, more dramatic moment you could, like, give someone a reason to swear.
It was a moment of levity.
Okay. I like a good serious swear, like, because it's like,
They've definitely toned back on it.
Oh yeah, they've not sworn since like season 2, like on Discovery.
I think that's true. Yeah.
I wonder if they just got enough flack or enough weird like.
We haven't had any more boobs since the first season of Star Trek Discovery either.
We didn't have we had Klingon boobs.
Klingon boobs.
They don't count. That's a prosthetic.
We saw nips.
Aye, but prosthetic and makeup, that doesn't count.
All right.
I'm not counting that.
I was shocked.
I mean, I was shocked too, but no, not counting that. So, yeah, that's when we get into spoilers. We could talk about the various things. Yeah, I'll just get spoilers. All right, so full spoilers then for Oblivion from this point on. So, like we say, the opening chunk of the movie is very much just showing what his routine is. It's showing that he's with this woman, Victoria. Oh, what did they keep calling her? Because it wasn't Vicky, but it was something like Vicky.
I don't know. I couldn't actually catch it.
Yeah, it was like a weird like shortened or victim.
I wasn't sure what her name was actually when the movie was over. I'm like, wait, what is her character called?
It says
pick it up.
It says Victoria, and I think at one point he did call her Vicky, but that was only once. Like almost every other time in the movie when she was referred to something, it was something else. It was
I thought it started with an A, but I don't know. Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was weird. It was a weird abbreviation, but so we get their routine, we get what they're like as Tom Cruise is narrating, and obviously everything's too perfect, so you know something's not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
I you know, and that was kind of what I was getting at earlier, is that there's this kind of weird fine line where it's, you know, you either have to make it feel very natural, so it's a nice big twist when it turns out to be something's not quite right, or you really lean into it, like Truman Show or something like that, where like we're so in on it that it feels like we're spotting all the signs. But because it kind of plays it straight with the characters and how they're going through things, and how like she's reacting to things, and like, you know, for example, the pool scene where she's like, oh, this, you know, she does it as a bit of a deflection tactic, because he's talking about, like, you know, but what if the world's, you know, fine, there's, you know, I grew a plant, like maybe we don't have to leave, and she's like, shut up honey, let's have sex, and that's kind of like her distraction tactic.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there's not a lot of emotion in it, you know, so like honestly, she's so off in this first part of the movie that it made me think she was like in on it. Like, she, you know, because she's not. She's just as like clueless as he is, but she comes off almost like she like Truman Show, where she's like, no, she's like working with the people in charge, you know, whoever's doing this. So.
Yeah, I think she just comes off as somebody who's very by the book, who's very just trying to do what her duty is so that she can go home.
Yeah, but yeah, like we said, it starts with the Delia T style like dream sequence where Tom Cruise is dreaming of Olga, and it's got this kind of old timey kind of photo style visual look to it, and it's just like, it's a couple of moments, and he's talking about how he's like, these are memories that I've never had, because I wasn't born back when New York was like a place that existed and had people in it.
Yep.
So, but what is this coming from?
Our first red flag.
Yeah, and they say like multiple times that they're done in 2 weeks, and I'm like, okay, I don't believe that you're done in 2 weeks.
2 weeks from retirement, damn.
There's something fishy about this, especially the way Sally kept saying, like, "Are you an effective team?"
I actually like her a lot. I like the voice of their boss and the look of her boss. I thought she was a neat character, you know, where she's so unique. She has a very specific accent to where it comes off as very like a real person that they're talking to, but also has this formulaic way of speaking to them where there's an undertone of something else that could be sinister.
Yeah, obviously it sort of escalates as the movie goes on.
Mm-hmm. Every now and then there's a glitch since the signal's coming from somewhere else, and it sounds a little robotic.
Yeah, it's coming from the tent, which is the big monolithic space station or spaceship that's sort of orbiting the Earth. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously more than that later, but yeah. So he goes out, he fixes a drone. We see kind of like how what his days are like. But I guess this is the second day he goes out. It turns out he's got a secret little like area. There's actually like an area that's full of life. It's full of trees, and it's got a little lake, and he's built a little house there, and he's got a bunch of memorabilia that he's found. He's found old records. He's found like a baseball hat that he wears, and he just spends some time there. And he's like, you know, at home he's just comfortable. But you know, when he gets a call that there's something going on, he still goes out. Although he's lying to her about this place. But he still goes out and so on and so on. And it says some things up early where one of the drones, which is designed to kill any scabs that it finds, there's a dog. And of course Tom Cruise is like, no, get out of here, dog. Like, you know, this drone I've just fixed is about to start shooting you. So he gets rid of it. So it's setting you up that he's willing to let things that aren't, you know, live, that aren't the target. And this is important because then we have when I'm watching the movie, this feels really coincidental to me, but honestly, by the end, it kind of, like, it had to happen eventually. It was just a case of, this is the Tom Cruise I mean, we're in spoilers, so I can say that this is the Tom Cruise that it happened to, which is finally the life pods of this spaceship come down the Odyssey, and one of them is the woman from his dreams. And all of the other space pods where the people haven't woken up all get killed by the robots. Tom Cruise protects her and takes her back up to the base. Honestly, at this point, I feel like we have to just explain what the premise of the story is, and then go back into scenes and sort of talk about how the scenes play them out, because it's so complex that it's, you know, it's hard to just kind of like keep going through it. Yeah. So, right. So, like we said, the cover story is that the scavs came, they blew up the moon to cause chaos on Earth, and then came down and fought Earth. Earth won the war, though. So humanity won the war, but Earth's still screwed, so they all went to Titan. We found out later that this is not true. Titan, well, it exists, but there's no one on it. Titan's empty, right? It turns out the tent is actually the thing that blew up the moon and like screwed up the Earth. The Odyssey was a spaceship, a mission in 2017. Keep in mind this came out in 2013, so this was like, you know, the near future at the time. The Odyssey was a ship that went out to explore Titan, but once they got out there was this mysterious UFO thing, and they tried to make contact with it, and because Tom Cruise and you know, Andrea Riseborough's characters were the ones who were awake flying the ship when everyone else was asleep, they get taken, and the Titan comes, it blows up the moon, it sends down clones of Tom Cruise as an army to kill most of the survivors, and it's now been using clones of Tom Cruise ever since to maintain the drones on the ground. So that part of what his job is true, like, you know, that's why he's there. But what we find out later is that there's lots of Tom Cruises on Earth, because he's told to never go into the restricted area, which is like, you know, they say it's, you know, it's radioactive or something. Yeah. But when he goes into the radioactive area, it turns out that he finds another. And this was like when I was like, wait, you're doing the clone thing as well from Moon? Really? I couldn't believe, because it's really obvious. Like, when he's going up to like the other ship that's crashed or landed, and you're like, that's going to be another Tom Cruise. Like, this is the only thing that makes sense at this point in the movie, is that this is another Tom Cruise. So that's the thing that's going on. He's been cloned. Cause that's the thing. At the start of the movie, he says that he had a mandatory memory wipe 5 years ago, and I'm like, do you not think that's suspicious, Jack? Like, why? Why have you got a mandatory memory wipe? What's the purpose of that?
He doesn't remember.
That's true. True.
I'm sure Tom Cruise thought, well, I mean, I would have said yes at the time if it was good enough reason, so that's good enough for me.
Yeah. And then the other part of this, of course, is that the scavs that are running around are actually just people that are wearing masks and stuff, led by Morgan Freeman, and they're trying to fight to take back Earth and destroy the tent so they can live again in some way. So that's like explaining the broad stroke of the whole thing, is what we find out. And Olga is actually Tom Cruise's wife in the movie, right? They were married before they went up in the spaceship, and he sent her back. And the reason why I said it's not actually that coincidental is because we see in the flashback towards the end that, you know, he jettisoned the life pods and back to Earth, and it's taken 60 years because they were near Saturn when he did this. So it makes sense that eventually this had to happen, and that's why presumably all of the Tom Cruises that are doing this, you know, mission now, where they don't remember anything and they're sort of maybe gaining attachment to the past, they presumably all have that. They probably all have this same like character growth, where they all have, like, you know, little things they've found from the past. They probably all care, and that's heavily implied.
We get hints of that too, yeah.
Because you know, number 52, the second one we meet at the end, it seems like, yeah, he's been having the same memories, the same dreams. You know, he's going to probably end up with the wife again, but the reason why R1 is different is because R1 is the one, this is the moment that makes him different, is because his wife actually lands in front of him and he has a chance to like save her, and this is what convinces Morgan Freeman that this one's different. And there are some nice ideas that come out of this later. We'll talk about that when we get to some specifics, but there you go, I've explained it. It's actually quite a lot. It's quite a lot to explain. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a good job.
Thank you. Thank you kindly. So yeah, so he takes her back to the base, the house, whatever you want to call it, and Victoria's not too thrilled about this. She doesn't want to let her in. She's like jealous immediately.
Well, we've gotten the scene before where he brings her a flower that he's grown for her, seemingly over some time, and she immediately just throws it over the edge.
That's a contamination that may be radioactive.
Yeah, just like in WALL-E.
I didn't even think of that, but you're right. That's another thing, just like WALL-E. Yeah. So they resuscitate her, bring her back, and you can tell that Victoria's getting jealous because when they're at the dinner table and like Tom Cruise is explaining the history, and obviously, I mean, you think about this later from like Olga's perspective, like she's just woken up, and the last thing she remembers was probably like going to sleep in the ship.
Yeah. Well, her reaction is to laugh right away.
Well, she laughs when she sees that they're together as a thing, because Victoria holds his hand,
right?
Almost to assert like dominance that this is my man. Like, you back off.
Yeah,
bitch.
Okay, you're hot, but like I'm okay, and he's mine.
So, I never actually thought about this when I was watching it, but now I'm thinking about it. Like, Olga, obviously she's laughing and she's really confused right now about the time period, and she's confused about why her husband's with this other person. But she doesn't actually know the truth about what happened until after she gets the flight recorder, because she was asleep for all of the things that happened in space.
It is very surprising when you think about it. Like, she didn't react to him right away to seeing him as like, oh my God, thank God it's you. Or something, So I thought throughout the film that she already knew something about the aliens other than like they were going to go meet them, but that they were hostile or something. And that his memory was wiped or something like that.
Yeah, I guess you have to take it as that she's so delirious and like, coming out of this, long sleep, this long coma, that she's just kind of not processing it immediately, and then before she has a chance to really react to anything, like Victoria's like, putting the line in the sand.
I suppose so. Maybe if I watched it again, I would notice, but or I'd pay more attention to that moment just to see what her acting is like there. Because I think although I had seen this movie before, it had been a while, so I wasn't. Some of the stuff I didn't really remember quite so well.
Yeah, it'd been a long. I mean, it's been 9 years. Like, it's actually been 9 years since this came out, which is insane in its own.
Yeah.
Right. But she's like, hey, I need to go and get my flight recorder. I need to know what happened to the ship. And Tom Cruise like obviously feels something, and he has this natural curiosity, so he agrees, and he leaves before before Victoria even wakes up. So it's he's in trouble basically if he comes back. He's in trouble.
Definitely.
So they fly out and get that, but there's I think it's before this he gets attacked by the scavs. Like, he thinks that they're trying to kidnap him. Mm-hmm. But he gets out in the nick of time.
And he mentions that they were trying to capture me, they weren't trying to kill me, which was confusing for him. Yeah. But also sparks more curiosity.
No, it does. So yeah, they end up well, they eventually get captured by the scavs, basically, by the humans, and are taken to their base. And there's a lot of moments throughout the film where you see like someone in a mask with binoculars, looking up at the house, or just watching Tom Cruise from a distance. They steal his bike at one point, and basically he wakes up in a dark room, and Morgan Freeman's there, all ominous and saying things like, "Have you ever actually met a scav?" The point being that he's going to say, it's not real. Oh, actually, no. If I mixed things up, did they go to did they have the scene on top of the Empire State Building first?
I don't think so.
Is that after this?
I think that's after.
You're right, yeah, because the ship, because Victoria sends the autopilot ship to go get them, and she sees them kiss from the ship, Like they're not even kissing, they're just kind of holding each other kind of affectionately, and the ship comes up behind them, and it's like, oh.
Well, he in that moment he's just realized that that's his wife, and she says like, we're married. Yeah.
Because they're at the place where they were when he proposed. That's the memory that he's dreaming about, looking through the telescope.
Convenient.
Yeah. I mean, it works because
it's okay. Yeah.
It's a famous landmark, so it kind of works that he would go there to propose.
Also, it's in his area of work, so it makes sense that maybe he's seen this before and it's triggering something in his mind.
Yeah, and maybe the shuttle was programmed to land back in the New York area because, I mean, obviously spaceships tend to launch from elsewhere because NASA's not really New York based, but I wonder if, like, because they're New York based or something, it was supposed to land there. Otherwise, this is maybe a little convenient that the wife landed in the zone that was important to them as a couple.
It's also convenient that she didn't age 60 years.
Cryo sleep, I guess. Yeah. That's all I got for you.
That would have been hilarious, though.
Yeah. Oh, if she was like if
she came back as like an 85-year-old or something.
Yeah, she'd be older than Morgan Freeman when she came out the pod. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's me, Jack. It's me, your wife.
She just comes out of an old Scottish woman. Your wife.
I'm sorry I can't do an accent, especially when I'm doing an old person impression at the same time. All right, no more voices for you. So I guess as explained to them, they kind of explain their plan. They want them to reprogram a drone they've kidnapped to carry a bomb that they've made out of all these like fusion cells up to the tent to blow it up. And because
there's a bunch of like smaller versions of the tent all over the earth, because one of the things that they're there to do is take all the resources. That's why they destroyed the planet for people to live on.
That's the ones that suck up the water. Yeah,
they're looking for resources, so that's why they're still around. And we see one of them explode, and apparently just one of the fusion reactor things that they have did that, but they've collected multiple, and it needs to go to the mothership. Yeah,
I think that was a test drive or something, or possibly lure out Tom Cruise, one of the two. But yeah, they wake up in the middle of the night. This is before the wife's there, because I think it's when he's out investigating this that the ship crashes down.
I think you're right.
So they explain his plan. They're going to like hurt him. They threaten to shoot Olga when they bring her out. I should say Julia because that's a character name, but it's just easier to say Olga. It's a more memorable name because it's more distinct.
We keep saying Tom Cruise instead of Jack.
It's impossible to see him as Ethel and Tom Cruise though.
Yeah. Sometimes I see Ethan Hunt.
Sure.
That's about it. Jerry Maguire maybe.
So a drone shows up though, to sort of threaten their base, so they sort of have to take it down. So we get a bit of an action scene where there's like several snipers on either side try to shoot its weak spots, and it shows how destructive they are because it sort of kills a few of them and ends up when it does eventually go down, it sort of explodes into a wall and probably kills another one or two of them. So it's like, hey, one of these things is really tough to take down. It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of coordination, which is why later on when they send three of them at the same time and they break into the actual interior of this base, it's going to be a big deal and cause a lot of chaos. But yeah,
these guys are very Portal-like.
Yes, it's basically
design.
They're
like the round turrets.
Yeah, they're Portal-like with a HAL 9000i. That's what they are.
I think the turrets, the turrets in the game also have the red eye.
I don't remember. It's been so long since I've played any of it. Before this movie, I probably haven't touched any of Portal since 2010 or something like that. But yeah, and so then Morgan Freeman says, "Hey, go off into those forbidden zones. Go find some answers there." And he lets them go. He gives them his bike back and he lets them ride off. But they go to the Empire State Building, and this is where Olga drops all the bombshells of because he's like, "Who are you? I've seen you in my dreams and my restless sleep. Will I find you again in Silent Hill? um, so I realised I was paraphrasing something from the start of Silent Hill 2, which is about a man who gets a letter from his dead wife saying she's in Silent Hill, and he says, like, I get it, you don't get the reference. Some people may have enjoyed that. You did not. It's fine.
It is fine.
So, yeah, like, there's a lot of stuff to explain with these like moving parts, and like how it gets to the point where he's remembering things, and his reaction now that he does remember things. You know, Victoria won't let him in. In fact, one of the most PG-13 things about the movie, I would say, is the way she dies, because like her body just like disappears.
Yeah, it kind of happens off screen also.
Yeah,
we just see like the ashes.
Because one of the drones comes up next to the house, and she's like standing in between like him and the drone fires, and yeah, you hear the shots, and then like Tom Cruise is diving, but you can't see her body lying on the floor where it would be, or at all. Mm-hmm. Admittedly, now I'm thinking about it, I think one of the guys in the rebels, or whatever you want to call them,
we do see someone else get blown up that way.
They get disintegrated basically. So I'm not sure if if that's just what the laser gun does. It just makes them go, poof. But
I think so. Yeah. I think that's the point of it.
Yeah, maybe it is. In the moment though, I thought it was weird that I couldn't see like even like some legs or something. Just
Yeah, although I don't enjoy the love story in the movie, I think I do still feel bad for her character, for the redhead character, Victoria, and she is just as much of a victim as Tom Cruise. She just was unfortunately not cloned with the brain of Tom Cruise, who has this rejection of authority, maybe, and trying to be more curious and adventurous. So, like, I kind of wish that there was still some sort of storyline where he tries to, at least save one of them, one of the Victorias or something. Not in like a I love her kind of way, but just like she's not a bad person.
Yeah, because he meets the second one after he knocks out and like ties up his clone. He like flies up to the other like house on this sector, and because he's getting like medical supplies because Olga gets shot, and yeah, there's this like interaction, and it's kind of like sad that she's here and she's expecting to go home soon, and it's like, okay, that's maybe a little interesting, the idea that maybe we can build sympathy for her now, but there's not a lot of it. There's not a ton of it.
I guess because she kind of comes off so cold in the first third of the film, and when Tom Cruise meets his wife, she's automatically like, well, I'm gonna reject you now since you've abandoned me and our perfect little world that we live in. But at the same time, like, all of these clones are all real people. They're not like, I mean, you can describe them as drones, but they all have the same personality of the people that they were cloned from, and they're all individuals. So isn't it wrong to like let them die, or let them suffer, or let them be a part of the system that they are stuck in?
It is. Well, that begs the question: what happens when they blow up the tent at the end? What happens to all the Tom Cruises and all the Victorias? If they were on their homes, then they probably also got blowed up, or maybe not. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they're all free. Yeah, maybe they're still, the house is still work or function all right.
I imagine the houses would have fallen, so all the Victorias probably died.
Well, to be fair, the second one we see isn't floating. It's actually like on a mountain. It's got like a leg.
Oh, okay.
And it's on a mountain, so maybe not all of them are floating.
Maybe not. Yeah.
So.
Populate the world with Tom Cruise and redheaded lady who's Victoria's. I don't remember the name of the actress.
Andrea Riseborough.
Andrea Riseborough. Yeah, not a bad start for population. Maybe a lot of similar genes, though.
Yeah, maybe that's a bad idea. Yeah, the movie doesn't really bother trying to like address what happens to all the other clones that are presumably on Earth at the end of the movie, but yeah, whatever. It is
one for every country.
It is worth mentioning though that it's her own fault. Like she basically kills herself because she calls the drone and says, "Hey, like he's not useful anymore. Like we're not a suitable team.
I don't think she understood exactly what the consequences were going to be when she said that.
No, I agree, yeah.
Because she still thinks she's talking to a human when she talks to the lady with the accent.
I get the feeling that if one of them is defective, it'll just kill both of them and restart with a new set of clones, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. In fact, I wonder if like the reason why this is like 2 weeks till like retirement, if you will, is because they used to have it be longer, and they figured out that this is around the time when Tom Cruise's character starts to get too curious. Like this is like right at the cutoff, and that's why.
Yeah, presumably this has been going on for at least like 50 years or something. So, since the takeover happened, I don't know if they actually say how long it's been.
About 60 years, I think they say at one point.
They said 60 years, so the monolith thing got to Earth right away with 1,000 Tom Cruises to take over. That would be a good army, an army of Tom Cruise.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like Morgan Freeman mentions that after he saw, presumably as a young boy at this time, he saw the moon go down, and then the army of Tom Cruises. And we find out that Jack's character, Jack is a celebrated astronaut. He's like kind of the best of us, and he was like bastardized into all these clones. Now, this is the interesting thing, is that obviously all these clones that get sent to kill people, they must have been very different from the clones that we know that are doing this cleanup job, because if they were all together, then one, they'd see each other, and two, they're straight up killing humans, so there was clearly a stricter control on that version of the clones that were being made.
Yeah, I imagine so.
So I will say the idea that I like in this, and I wish it felt it had a bit more heft to it, but the idea that I do really like in this is, and it's Morgan Freeman's giving a great little speech when he's explaining all this stuff happened, but he says that when he saw Jack protect what turned out to be his wife, this idea that eventually this good person would like remember who he is or find himself again. I actually, that was a really interesting idea of like just like what a soul is, or humanity in that case, where like eventually one of these Jacks was going to like just learn enough and be empathetic enough to like become himself again. And so that's it. And I was laughing earlier on when you said something, because it occurred to me that this is like the opposite of Rocket Man. He's like the perfect guy to send up into space. He's like the best of the best.
What a great movie. He's the William Sadler.
In many ways, yeah, he's the William Sadler of this.
Maybe too old for the role, but he would have been good too.
Yeah. Because I did like that concept. I did like that general idea. I think it's maybe just a case of the movies like just playing with too much, because I have to spend so much of the movie just getting through the idea of what happened to Earth and all the rest of it. By the time you introduce the clones, it's like, oh god, this is like just a hodgepodge of so much sci-fi ideas.
Maybe. I think you could do it a little bit cleaner than the way the film has done it. But I don't think all the ideas are too much. I think maybe some of the action set pieces are unnecessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I know why they're in there to kind of spruce up the film, but I think I like a movie without so much action.
Yeah, I agree. Like, because after this happens, like they go into the Forbidden Zone, they find the clone, he knocks himself out.
The Forbidden Zone.
After he patches her up, they go back to like Morgan Freeman and co. And he's obviously going to help them now, because like now he understands what's going on, and that Sally's actually just the AI on this ship that's controlling them, and it's all awful and whatever. And he's reprogrammed the drone. The drone thing doesn't go through though, because 3 drones come and find them. And there's a neat little scene actually where you see sort of Sally kind of like remembering what one of the distress calls was earlier on when they sent the first drone, and realize that's probably where the base is. So she sends out 3 drones, and they get into the building. So we get this big action scene where there's drones in the building, like and there's just gunfire, and Tom Cruise is like jumping around and diving and ducking and so on and so on. And it's all right. It's not a bad action scene, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's ultra needed per se. Yeah, maybe that's partly why this feels a little bit hollow overall, is because it feels like a movie that's full of like harder sci-fi ideas, but it wants to package it into like a friendly blockbuster with enough action for everyone to
It's got the Tomorrow War problem. maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this is much better than the Tomorrow War. Like, I mean, it's light years ahead of the Tomorrow War. But yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think it's a fair comparison in some ways.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially if you're looking at it like holistically, if you take a step back and like, what's the movie really talking about? I mean, I guess you can kind of say it's talking about like being a part of a system, much like the Matrix or something, where if you don't question why you're doing something, then maybe someone's just taking advantage of you and you shouldn't really be doing it. Questioning like just following orders and an alien coming in and taking all the resources and destroying the land and not caring about the people that live in it. Could be like a colonial thing.
You're kind of hitting on something that I guess I would also add on to this pile then, is that I'm not so sure it does really have anything to say. I feel like it's a bunch of cool ideas because they're cool ideas, but not because it's like forming like a cohesive, like this is the message that the film is trying to get across. The fact that
I kind of picked up on that when I was watching it. It felt like this is some sort of a commentary on like government overreach in a way where or not overreach, but maybe more like colonialism. Just something coming in and wiping out the population and taking its resources and leaving a shithole behind.
Okay, I mean, I think I'm not really seeing it, and I think the reason why I'm not seeing it too much is because there's so many clashing things in the movie that it feels like they're all...
It's too flashy.
Well, that's a bit too flashy, but that's not really what I'm saying. I'm saying that because you've got that side of things, you've got the clone side of things where it's kind of like someone, like the idea of that humanity will come through in the end, and that someone who is good will still be good, and you can't take your humanity away from it. It's like, we'll eventually find it again, kind of thing. And maybe that is a little Matrixy. And you can even, I think the list I was looking at earlier tried to say it did take from the Matrix, because like Morgan Freeman was like this mentor figure like Morpheus, and I was like, that's a bit of a stretch. I'm not quite seeing that.
No, but when Morgan Freeman shows up with the glasses and like the match to light his cigar and stuff, I'm like, well, that's a picture from Le Chate.
Oh,
He's
sure.
just surrounded by darkness.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
It looks like the guys with the goggles and stuff, the scientist.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, because it's got all these different elements, I think like it's not really got a cohesive message overall, and it's not really like they kind of necessarily blend together all that well. So, and they're all fun ideas, right? And I think when we've seen them done individually, they tend to like have a bit more to say, because they're focusing really, on the cloning, or they're focusing really on the, the control and the system and like breaking free of it and all that. And I'm not saying they can't merge, but like I don't know if they do in this movie per se. I think it's just something that occurred to me as you were sort of like rhyming off the 8 different things it could be. The reason why there's 8 different things it could be is because there's so many ideas in here that
yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be specifically one thing for it to be good. I don't know, like there could be a message that the director was trying to get through, and maybe it did get lost in all the Hollywoodness of it, or maybe it can be interpreted in different ways, kind of like the Matrix.
I agree with the first part. I don't know if this can be interpreted in many ways like the Matrix. Because the Matrix can. The Matrix absolutely can.
The Matrix is much easier to do so.
You're saying this is a more challenging film than the Matrix?
Maybe, actually.
No, I'm drawing a line here. This movie's... this movie is... And I'm not saying it's dumb, but it's dumber than the Matrix, so therefore it's not more complex.
Well, I mean, if you say challenging, I think it's more challenging to find the theme than in the Matrix.
Oh yeah, but not for the right reasons. When I say a movie's challenging, I mean it's like it's really challenging the viewer to like pay attention and actually pick up the subtleties and get what it's saying.
I mean, I think you can. I mean, if you're just dealing with the woman who's just following orders and stuff and doing what she's told, even though her boss is not on her side, it is a little bit Matrixy of just being stuck in a system of people that take advantage of you because you think that this is what you need and this is what you want and this is what you need to be happy, but really it's you're always going to be under someone else's thumb.
Yeah, I think the problem is though is that by the time you get to the end, there's like so many other things happening that, like, oh now there's an Eden where she's got a daughter, which we'll talk about the kid in a minute because I'm confused. Maybe I have to have a birds and the bees conversation on the show because I don't understand how that happened.
Yeah. My guess she was a frozen embryo, but in the pod.
Because it doesn't seem like at any point like our main character of Tom Cruise had sex with her to get her pregnant, which I feel like is what the ending was kind of implying. But I'm like, this never happened.
Maybe she found another clone and then killed him after she Black Widowed him.
As funny as that is, like the whole point of the ending is that the other clone we met eventually finds her, and it's like, oh, there's a second chance for us to be with, you know, him, kind of.
Yeah.
Because I do like the main one that we have, 40 something, the main Tom Cruise. He says at one point, I know I'm not really him. Like, I am obviously a copy of a copy. Like I like the real me was 60 years ago. I'm not technically him, but I have all the memories, and that's the sort of thing where if you were doing like a focused like exploration of that idea, you'd be doing things where, like, is a clone a real person? Does it have a soul? If it has all the memories of a person, is it just a splinter point where, okay, they start to gain new experiences, but they were still the same person up until that point, kind of thing. It just kind of like, it just waves it, it's a very quick move on because we've got other ideas to do, we've got other cool things we want to get to. So I do genuinely think it's too overstuffed to the point where nothing gets a chance to really say anything. But
yeah, I think I can agree with that. It would be nice if there was a much clearer message, I suppose. Especially because, like, there are lots of, movies and books and stuff that are about that. I mean, Brave New World is probably the most obvious one. Where this is like enough of a story, enough of a question to make a whole film about it,
Yeah, I mean, or certainly an episode of Star Trek Next Generation, I feel like could tackle this.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that.
Yeah, like it's exactly the sort of thing that is ripe for like exploration. All of these ideas are the alien overlords, the cloning, the post-apocalyptic nature of everything, the idea of the breaking out of the illusion of control under the guise of the cake, if you will. But the cake is a lie. Like, so many, and I'm not saying you can't like combine some of these things, you absolutely can, but it almost feels like there's enough stuff in here for it to be like a season of a TV show. Like, this could be 10 episodes, so by the time you get to dealing with some of the stuff, you could have explored enough of the other elements that it wouldn't feel like it was rushing through it too much.
Yeah, I suppose. You probably would have to change the robots so that they weren't so evil looking.
Sure, yeah.
If you wanted to do the TV show version of this, so that we can at least get through a few episodes before we're like, oh, they're the bad guys.
Yeah. And I think it would actually give you room to have a few more action set pieces than even the movie has, because it would be okay because it'd be spread out over, X number of episodes. So, I think that's a fair point to make. But yeah, so they go back to Morgan Freeman and that the drone gets destroyed that they were going to use. So it's like, shit, what are we going to do? Well, Sally did ask for the prisoner, or for the survivor, for Olga to be taken up. And she's like, let me do it. Like, I'll go up with the bomb. This is like, I can...
Sally wants to make a new set of clones with Olga instead of Andrea.
Yeah, because obviously he'll be more content and happy because this is actually his wife. So therefore, it'll basically stamp out any, rebellion in him.
Right,
effectively. Yeah. And, so they do a little swerve on us here where you think he's going up with her in the pod. But it's actually Morgan Freeman. When they jump out, it's Morgan Freeman, and Sally's like, "This is not the survivor," and we get a F-bomb. He says, "F you, Sally."
She gets full GLaDOS from Portal.
Yeah.
Although we've heard glimpses of her voice a little bit earlier in the film.
When it gets to storage, there's like a little moment of because Sally's based on the person who was like the mission control person because while they're flying up, Tom Cruise like listens to the flight recorder for the Odyssey, and hears like what happened, and we get the flashback of, oh, they're going towards their ship to investigate it, and those two were awake, which is why those two are the ones that are cloned and everything else. He jettisons the life pods before they get to it. So he has all that context with him. He goes into the thing, and it's very Independence Day when he's going in. I thought the visual of it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I do like though, because you can tell when he's lying. So she's like, "Hey, like you have to be honest right now, because your heart's beating fast, you're nervous. What's going on?" And I do kind of like that he kind of circumvents by telling the truth, just by telling the truth in a way that's omitting anything that would get him in trouble. So he's like, I want to save my wife, and I want to save Earth and humanity, and this is the only way I can do that. And technically all of that was true.
Right?
Technically all of that was
Very
true.
clever.
Yeah. So they blow up the tent, big glorious moment, and as all this is happening, we see Olga waking up in the lush, his little haven, his Garden of Eden, and we skip ahead at the end, and we see that she has a kid. The survivors, the main one who's under like Morgan Freeman, who's kind of like I guess now in charge, is Nikolaj something.
The guy from Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister.
Yes. I would never have thought of that. But I've seen him in other things. What else is he in?
That's really the only thing I know him from.
Yeah, he's in this.
He's in this, yeah.
He's in this.
I want to say this around, this is not too long after Game of Thrones started. Wasn't that like 2010 or something, 2011?
Yeah, 2011 I'd say, if I was going to say something. He's in a Swedish movie called Headhunters that I was wanting to see at one point and never get around to it.
He's a very good actor. He's kind of, just a recognizable face in this, not really too much of a character.
Oh yeah, Zoe Ball's standing next to him at one point, but you don't really notice her otherwise.
Yeah.
She's just kind of there. But yeah, so we skip ahead. So yeah, the survivors find this garden, so it's like, oh hey, we can all live in this lush garden now, and it's a community, and the second Tom Cruise is with them, and it's this thing where he's not really the same one, but that doesn't really matter in the sense that, hey, my kid can have a father now. The question I have is, when was this kid conceived? Was she supposed to be pregnant when she went to cryosleep? Which, for the record, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't let her board that spaceship if she was pregnant when they launched that mission.
Oh man, it's super dark if she got pregnant during cryosleep.
Oh. Isn't that somehow taken from Passengers then, if that's the case?
I actually haven't seen that film.
Yeah. Not that specifically happens in it, but just the idea that, Chris Pratt wakes her up.
Yeah, I know. Didn't they spoil that in the trailer? Or maybe not. Maybe it's just super obvious from the trailer.
Yeah. We'll have to do that someday. It's a sci-fi movie. So
I've not seen it. My father loves that film, though. He's been waiting for me to watch it.
You're going to judge him.
I already do.
You're going to judge him when you see it. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, I came off sounding very harsh at the start of this, mainly because Tara was edging me on. But I want to say that I think this is a very glossy Hollywood kind of hollow movie, but I think it's a very good example of that type of thing, and I think it's still relatively enjoyable and very watchable. I think it's better than The Tomorrow People. I think it's better than Passengers. I'm picking on Chris Pratt movies for some reason right now.
He's easy to pick on.
Yeah, but it's not as good as, say, like Edge of Tomorrow. Like, to pick another Tom Cruise sci-fi movie.
A fantastic film.
Edge of Tomorrow like has a great idea. It has a really good solid character arc. And it's not that doesn't take from things. I mean, you can't talk about Edge of Tomorrow without saying, hey, Groundhog Day, right? And that's an example where they took one idea from another movie and made it its own thing. Whereas here, I kind of feel like, oh, they just kept putting things in. We'll just throw a lot at the wall and we'll see what sticks. And ultimately, it's not really saying anything. And because of that, you're kind of left with this feeling that it's just a hodgepodge of these different movies that you've seen.
It does feel a bit like somebody's like, well, we want to write a sci-fi movie. Let's just watch a bunch of them.
Yes.
All the ones that people like and see what we can come up with. But I do think what they come up with is pretty cool.
Which could almost feel like a shouldn't fan movie. Just it happens to have a huge budget.
I do think. I mean, I don't know if the director had much to do with the writing of this film, but like it is. He hasn't done very many films up to this point.
So interestingly, he's not a writer on the movie, but he is a writer on the original story, which was a graphic novel.
Oh, interesting.
That's just, it's very rare that the writer of the comic book gets to, gets to direct the movie adaptation. That's kind of weird. That, you know what, that doesn't surprise me, because don't get me wrong, there's very good comic books that are sci-fi and original stories, but there's also a lot of comic books where you like, especially sci-fi and like horror, where you read them and go, oh, this is just the writer like doing all their favorite things from like movies that you've seen. So that does not surprise me that this was a comic book first.
You know what else I think he directed? I think he directed that that Gears of War trailer that had the Mad World song in it. That was really popular. That was a really good commercial, and I remember that one. And I didn't play video games like that then.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was his first directorial credit.
I think that's pretty cool. And then he did Tron Legacy, which is a film I really like. Though I think you're not going to like it.
Hey, I haven't seen it, so I can't. Do you know what's so weird is that after Oblivion, he did a short, like he did Only the Brave in 2017, and then the next thing was Top Gun Maverick. I mean, maybe that just got delayed a bit because of the
did
pandemic.
Get delayed quite a bit, yeah.
Well, that's probably why that and Spiderhead are coming out like right next, because Spiderhead, I imagine, get made a lot quicker after Maverick did.
Yeah, I'm sure. They probably did that during the pandemic even.
Yeah. So...
But Maverick is fantastic. I went and saw that twice in theaters. I mean, it just kind of worked out that way, but I didn't mind seeing it twice. And it probably his best film on the list.
But yeah,
really good.
I think that kind of sums up my feelings and why. If you're going to ask me what the difference is between like when is it just like having inspiration and when is it just feel like you're
ripping off.
I wouldn't even say ripping off, because that's maybe even too harsh. I mean, maybe you could say that in this case, but just the idea that it feels like a mix of like things from other movies, that rather than being like a movie on its own right that just happens to have inspiration. I think that is the difference, is that you feel like a complete finished story that has an idea and a through line, and not just, oh, here's a bunch of things I read. Because, to bring up Stranger Things, which I think is a really good point of comparison here, is Stranger Things is obviously inspired by a lot of stuff, right? The whole point of it is that it wants to make you feel like you felt during certain movies of the 80s, right? And like of that time period.
Psycho Gorman.
That's even a good example as well. Because what those do is they try and recreate the feeling, so you definitely recognize things of, oh, this is kind of its take on Aliens, or this is its kind of take on Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's always kind of making it its own, because it's like it wants to create the feeling more than it wants to copy the plot exactly. You can recognize that this is like how they're achieving certain things from that period, but it's not just about, oh, this is the episode where there's clearly this thing from this movie, or it's clearly this thing from that movie, by and large, so.
Well, sure. I mean, that's the difference. I mean, we've brought it up so many times as an example, but like we reviewed the Watchmen TV show on HBO, and how we praised that this really does feel like the same universe as the Alan Moore comic, whereas the Zack Snyder film feels like a copy of it, and it doesn't feel this. It feels a bit hollow because of that. That's
a very interesting comparison, because that's supposed to be an adaptation, but it's funny that ends up with that same feeling. So that's a really cool, interesting comparison. As Watchmen. To be fair to Stranger Things, something that separates that from, say, like a movie that has inspiration from something, is that with Stranger Things, I should point out that that's made with the pretense that everyone's going to understand and get what it's inspired by. So the whole point of it is that you're recreating a feeling and that you're going to recognize it. That's part of like how that works. Whereas here, you're not necessarily supposed to get all like the director didn't make this and go, oh, they're going to get the Leisure Tea scenes that I've taken from, kind of thing, So, and that doesn't necessarily make it. I'm not saying that you have to make it with the idea that people are going to get the inspiration and references, either, because obviously that's not what Tarantino does. Tarantino pulls from lots of weird things, and maybe some weirdos get the references, and that's cool. In fact, I applaud them, because you're like film buffs.
You have to love film.
Yeah, even more than I am.
Get them all.
Probably older than I am as well, if you're getting all those references. But
yeah, he does a lot of TV show references that are hard to find.
It's just another point that's different. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that none of this is binary. It's not just on-off switch where this is right and this is wrong, and there's no like there's a lot of, you know, everything is contextual. Everything works in its own right, and some of it works. The reason why one thing works in one movie doesn't mean if you do the exact same thing, it'll work in another, and vice versa. You know, like it could be different factors around it. It could just be that the concept's right for something to be more referential than something else. It could be they're just copying direct scenes too much. It could be whatever. I'm not saying that does that. This does that necessarily, but so it's very complicated. There's a lot of nuance, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Lots of nuance.
Yeah. I feel like people on the internet love to just be like, well, you liked X thing here, so why don't you like X thing in this thing? Like, because it's not, like, I don't know, just the arguments
You're
get
right.
dumb.
There's a lot of different layers. Like, you know, I enjoy fan service when it's done really well, and sometimes fan service can be a little bit eye rolly. Like, come on, you know, stop already.
Is there any recent examples you'd like to give of bad fan service?
No, I'm not a hater.
You're no fun.
Well, how about Rise of Skywalker versus like The Last Jedi?
That's fair. Yeah, Rise of Skywalker's pretty rough. And I mean, you didn't agree with me, but Jurassic World Dominion was very much Jurassic Park Rise of Skywalker, or Rise of Grant, or whatever you want to call it.
I didn't say I didn't agree with you. I mean, yeah, there was definitely a lot of fan service there that was a bit much, but some things I still liked in it. Yeah, some of the fan service I did like.
Okay.
But there's a lot of it where I'm just like, I can't believe you're doing this. It's so dumb.
Yeah. Very pandering.
This didn't need to be there. Well, I don't know if it's pandering or if it's just like, because I don't think the fans want that either. You know, I don't think the fans just want constant reference after reference after reference.
It depends what type of fan you're talking about. I think there's some that do. You know, there's definitely. I don't want to turn it into like dumb people like it, because I don't want to be that, like, you know, dismissive. But
maybe if this movie was a bit more meta and it was very forward about the things that it was inspired by, maybe I would enjoy that. I don't know.
I mean, Oblivion. Well, I mean, obviously this doesn't necessarily apply to it, because Oblivion's not fan service, because it's not.
No, but if it was like made as a fan service film for sci-fi lovers, maybe we would like it more. I don't know.
Oh, if it was more wink, wink, you know,
yeah, a little bit.
If it was more tongue in cheek.
I guess kind of like Paul, although I didn't really like that movie very much, but Paul was very much trying to do that.
No, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, I mean, I would definitely like a more cerebral, like, hard-hitting movie than this, but like I agree that would also possibly work. Is if you want to have all the different things in it, the idea is that you're going through a series of tropes and you're kind of playing with them. You know, you're kind of like Galaxy Quest, but for like more of a hodgepodge of all sci-fi as opposed to just the one thing that you're riffing off. Yeah,
not just Star Trek, Star Trek clone.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I mean, there's been an interesting debate to be had about like the level of like how much this movie does it, but I think it's a perfectly watchable movie. I think it looks pretty good and it sounds great. I think the music's fantastic. But you know, it's a hodgepodge of just a lot of other things, and it's a little bit hollow because of that. But it's a very watchable version of a hollow Hollywood movie, you know. So to shit on some Chris Pratt movies one more time. You're much better off watching this than Tomorrow War or Passengers
or Dominion or.
Oh yeah, it's true. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're right. That's also Chris Pratt. But I would say though, like I definitely recommend, even just like in the Tom Cruise sphere, Edge of Tomorrow way more than I would recommend Oblivion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't like this movie, and I think that's why Edge of Tomorrow didn't really do very well either. Also, it had a stupid title, but.
there was a lot of problems with the marketing.
But I feel like they
Edge of
came out
Tomorrow.
like right after each other.
Edge of Tomorrow was a year later. It was 2014.
Yeah. I was like, oh, we're starting to get the like, oh, another Liam Neeson action film where he's too old for the shit, but like he's in the thick of it and he's the best or something. It's a bit of a, maybe we were just getting that kind of pattern with Tom Cruise films. So we're like, we're not going to support this. But actually, it's a fantastic film. I love Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or Live Die Repeat or whatever.
What's funny is that Edge of Tomorrow, I would also describe that as and maybe this is again just because it's Tom Cruise, but it's also Doug Liman, who's like a very kind of like workman director, I think, is that it's also a very Hollywood movie. But I think Edge of Tomorrow is like probably the best of a just sort of Hollywood studio sci-fi movie that isn't like a prestige project, you know. And by that I mean like you know, your Gravity or Interstellar, or The Martian, which get these, you know, big like, oh, we're going to try and win awards with these things.
Right,
type of movies.
exactly, yeah. Yeah.
So
it's not a Nolan film or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, Nolan, Ridley Scott, or Alfonso Cuarón, who are all like, you know, I mean, Ridley Scott's up and down these days, but you know, whatever.
Or Denis Villeneuve, not like that.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's another good example. Like something like Arrival, because Arrival is not a, like, obviously it has a relative Hollywood budget, but it is not a Hollywood movie. It does not feel like one at all. So, let's just to say this is a bit of popcorn fun.
Yeah, totally.
And that's basically the extent of the recommendation I'll give it. It's got some eye candy and some ear candy, and I mean the visuals of the film here. I'm not talking about the attractiveness of the people. Just before anyone.
They are pretty attractive.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a Hollywood movie. They put attractive
Except for
people
maybe
in it.
Morgan Freeman, past his prime.
I don't know. There's something respectable, like a grey beard. I find it's just you know, that very dashing.
Yeah, but he's weird. He's got a weird thing with his adopted granddaughter. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, the Scientology stuff on the other side isn't exactly all that great either.
You're right. Absolutely not.
I hope the ladies, I hope they're both nice people that don't have weird things.
Yeah, me too. They're ladies, so they probably don't. They're probably fine. I mean, they could be Scientologists, I suppose.
Yeah, but they just can be weird. I mean, don't get me wrong. I admit that men are more likely to be scumbags, but you know, it's just... there's no point in denying it at this point. Like, all right. Rate Oblivion, would you please?
Okay. Yeah, I agree that the movie's got some issues. I wouldn't say they're enough to make me not enjoy the film, and I actually do think it's pretty good and pretty sleek looking, and I like the visuals quite a bit. Has some early Arrival stuff, you know, before then, with the big monolithic structures. I mean, you compared it to 2001 because that's an actual monolith, but I think like the scale of it's much bigger, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's a neat premise, and you know, I'm always going to enjoy Tom Cruise, even when he's maybe miscast. Although this one's debatable whether it's a miscast. I mean, if you want to get the best of the best, then yeah, he's probably the best of us, even if he is a Scientologist.
I don't think I'd say he's miscast. It's more just that I think the movie would be more interesting if they went for someone who was quirkier or edgier, you know?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, you get Tom Cruise, you get automatic likable hero.
Mads Mikkelsen. give me this with Mads Mikkelsen in the lead role.
That would be very interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Fresh off of, well, I guess not too much fresh off of Bond.
No, that was in 2006.
That was 2006. God, that was a while ago.
He was probably on Hannibal maybe at this point. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. But anyway, I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to give it a fair score because I think it is a decent film. It's a decent sci-fi film, and I recommend it.
Is the implication there that I will not give it a fair score?
No.
I'm reading between the lines. I'll see what you're saying. No, I think when I first saw it, I had a good enough time at the movies. I was in the right mood for it. I think maybe age, maybe also having seen more sci-fi since then, you know, my taste has matured a little bit again. It has went down a little bit for me because ultimately it's pretty solid is what it is, but what it is, you know, it's a Hollywood blockbuster movie made up of parts of lots of movies that weren't blockbusters by and large, to give it some sort of, you know, interesting story. So I think I'm going to go with a 6.5.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm landing on. But it's very watchable. It's a great 6.5, right? For a 6.5, it's very good and entertaining. But like, that's it. But there you go. So that's Oblivion, the Tom Cruise movie from 2013. You know, and it had no chance of being the best sci-fi movie that year because that was the year Gravity came out, which we still have to do at some point.
Yeah, I'll be happy to revisit that. I mean, I saw it in theaters and I remember it being a very exciting experience. I saw it in 3D and an IMAX screen, and it was a ride. But I haven't had any desire to rewatch it, I think, because the ride element's going to be gone.
I saw it a couple times in theaters, maybe 3 times, can't remember exactly.
Dang, you really like that one.
I did. I mean, I saw movies multiple times more often back then because I had unlimited viewings of things. I had like a membership because of the theater that was near my university.
I was very poor at that time, so
yeah.
Usually I had to wait for the $2 theater to have the screening.
so I would go and see, you know, lots of things multiple times, but assuming I liked them. Obviously the ones I didn't like, I didn't. But yeah, so there you go. That is the show pretty much. But I suppose we'll tell you what's coming next time.
That'd be great, because I'd like to know too.
Predators.
Oh.
Well, we gotta get caught up because
Prey's coming out.
It's out in August, so we gotta get Predators and the Predator done. You know, gotta get them done sharpish. And we got some interesting recent releases actually to talk about in the next month or so as well. Some stuff that came out earlier this year that were limited theater wise, so we're hitting them now. They're hitting the VOD markets and whatnot. So look forward to the next couple of months on the Atomic Cinema Experiment.
Woohoo!
So yeah, but of course you can like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. All those things help out a lot. You can of course hit the super thanks button if you want to support the show, but you can also support us somewhere else, can't they, Tara?
That's right, Peter.
Aren't we an effective team? We're an effective team.
Do you think we're clones of other podcasters?
I feel like I'm better than at least 5 other versions of myself, yeah. I'm the improved model.
Yeah, I don't know about that for me. Yeah, every year we just replace ourselves with a clone that's slightly better.
Yes, exactly.
But I haven't got my box yet in the mail for my replacement. Anyway, that's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MouthFuzzTV, where if you donate those $1 per month, you will get access to bonus reviews for the Ace. So if you're wondering where your favorite B movies are, like the Tremors sequels, we're working our way through that. What's the last one we just did?
We did Alligator.
Alligator. Ooh, that was fun. So yeah, that's going to be over on patreon.com/MouthFuzzTV. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to these reviews 1 day early. And some other shows you get early, sometimes up to a week. So head on over and check that out. Thank you.
Yeah. Otherwise, though, that is pretty much us. That is the show. So let us know what you think of Oblivion in the comments. And we'll see you next time. Get us on Twitter at ScreamsMidnight. And yeah, keep watching sci-fi movies, guys. We'll see you next time. And computer, add salsa.